Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, a podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I'm your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And another week has gone by with no games with David and I, but I did have my Thursday game, which we played. I can't remember what it was. Our other player, Kelvin, said that he wanted to do something. It was an OSR-style game, so it was kind of like a straightforward, just very, very old school medieval fantasy playthrough, and he played it just like how David talks when we do one-shots. He was just like, this is what you're doing, this is what you're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, now go. I think it might have been Old School Essentials, but I can't remember exactly which one it was. This was one of the, it definitely wasn't Shadow Dark, it definitely wasn't Morkborg, but it was one of the kind of whittled down OSR styles that still had THAC0. So,
oh wow,
yeah. But Calvin is older than I am. I think he's in his 50s now, and he started playing around the early 80s. So that's kind of his jam.
Yeah.
But that was kind of fun, going down a little bit of memory lane. Roll a lot of six-siders, as well as a D20 every now and then. But all of your, I played the rogue, so I had a lot of six-siders to roll. All of your thief skills are six-sided dice, which I think was the first edition version. It was a lot of six-siders. Moved on to percentiles in AD&D second edition. But it was a good time.
Nice.
Maybe this weekend we're going to be running a one-shot, or maybe I might be running a one-shot if our other players are in on it. So we'll see how that works out. Other than that, no other games have been played.
I was thinking maybe that we could just run, like if you have a follow-up scenario to any of the things we already ran a one-shot on, like a follow-up to the Daggerheart, a follow-up to the Fabula Ultima, a follow-up to the Final Fantasy, the follow-up to, what was the other one we ran? So
well, unfortunately, I don't think I have any of those saved at all. So we're probably just going to have to go brand new.
Well, okay. Well, that's just as well. Like I said, I haven't confirmed yet. I don't know. We're at a point in Barbarians of Lemuria where I don't... Uh-oh.
Nope, you're fine.
Oh, sorry. My computer opened another tab, and I thought it closed this one. I don't think we're at a point where we can just... We have to go with the players that we had in the last session, and Diana was there, and I don't know if she's going to be available on Saturday this week. So, but it's probably like a 50-50. I'll have to follow up with her and find out. But if we do, we can play Barbarians of Lemuria and get back into that kind of second session of that quest, or third. It'd be the third session of that quest. The first 3-session adventure that we've had. So that'll be cool, but if not, then yeah, it might be good to have something prepared. I don't think I have any one-shots prepared, but it doesn't... If you don't have anything, just let me know, and I guess I can probably figure something out.
Oh, I've got plenty.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I got some locked up. I'll take out, get ready. Oh shit, what else was I had here? Oh no, this is other new stuff that I had coming up. Okay, this will be all for a later show. Because I haven't dug into it enough. Looks like Dark Sun might actually be happening for D&D 5th edition or 5.5, whatever the fuck you want to call it. They put out a bunch of subclasses that are directly from Dark Sun, like the Gladiator Warrior, oh man, what is it? Yep, now I can't remember. So you're all gonna have to wait until I actually do the research on it and talk about it. Maybe next week, or maybe coming up pretty soon if there's any more word on it. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I brought up to David a little idea that I had for the show that I wanted to call Inside the GM Workshop. On the show here, we talk about how you should run your game, how you should write your adventures, but we've never talked about how we do it really, and like in a tell-all process of what our process actually is when we're making adventures. How do we write it up? What notes do we take and all that jazz? So I thought it'd be cool if David and I we took a similar topic and we just ran with it and we created our own, and I would like to see how each of us did it. If we made it, somewhat similar, if we did completely different. So I gave that gave David the cue, and we've gone with it, and now we've got our adventures. I gotta say, I went a little overboard with it. Usually I did a lot more than I usually did, but I was having fun. But
it's funny because it's like adventure you're not actually making, overboard. Adventure that you are making, I'm not gonna prep too much for it. I don't want to over prep.
Yeah, I will let you know right now. I was going to say when I brought it up that normally the first process that I do here that I'm going to bring up, this is my normal process. Sometimes I do the second process. The third process I fucking never do. I just had a lot of fun doing it. And also, I'll tell you right now, David missed a week. He said, "Oh, I forgot we were doing that. So can we do it again, next week?" So I had an extra week to work on some stuff.
Yeah, I just went with kind of a more straightforward kind of adventure that I think kind of incorporates, like, that would be interesting for players that are somewhat well suited to the game and are somewhat experienced but isn't going to reinvent the wheel, but would also be accessible and exciting enough for players that aren't really into the deep cuts kind of elements of D&D, where you might have like a pure like espionage game or something like that. So I tried to make it like accessible for basically all levels and sophistications of players. So I can get started whenever you're
Yes,
ready.
please.
If you have any more final thoughts there.
Nope.
Okay. So first, I was trying to think of a way. Initially, I was like, look, what should I do for an intro that would kind of showcase different tactics for intros? Like, initially, I was like, maybe I should try to figure out a way that I can have the you meet in a tavern, because we both have not used that in a long time. I'm like, maybe I could try to think of a clever way that I could have a you meet in a tavern opening, and it would be interesting. But then I thought against that, and I was like, so we just start in media res, as is my favorite tactic in more modern days. I chose an in media res opening precisely because I think it's the most accessible style of opening for players to get thrown in and kind of start to get the handle of the mechanics and also get them invested in the drama and doing something as early as you can. So we start in media res at like a bugbear cave where the party is battling like just right in the throes of like initiative, right out of the gate. So then what is loading? Stop loading. Okay. Then after the battle, we immediately segue into a little exposition to tell the party how they got to this point. And so there doesn't need to be a lot, but what I came up with is that there is, they are here to rescue the leader of a woodcutters guild. And the leader of the Woodcutters Guild is a member of the Emerald Enclave. So this provides a hook for any druid, barbarian, or ranger characters. And he's been kidnapped, and that Woodcutters Guild in this kind of modest-sized town that relies a lot on logging and exporting tinder, works closely with a warriors guild that protects them while they are out logging sites. So this could potentially provide a hook for a fighter character too, who might be involved in a warriors or fighters guild. And the reason that protection is necessary is because throughout the course of the logging expedition, the loggers had come across some sort of sacred magical environmental phenomenon. What it is not super important. It could be, some sort of rune glyph, some sort of naturally occurring magical phenomenon. But it threw a wrench in the logging process, much like if you discovered Indian remains during a excavation for like a building a home or something. And so that environmental phenomenon could also serve as a hook for a wizard, sorcerer, or bard. So wizard, sorcerer, bard, fighter, druid, barbarian, ranger. I suspect that covers enough bases where you can get the players, each one of the players hooked into the adventure. So we get just a little bit of exposition that informs the players of like basically what they're doing once they defeat what I had imagined at a low level would be a bugbear, but some sort of challenging encounter, some sort of menacing monster that would stretch the PC's capabilities thin from the early get to allow them to tap everything. The idea of the initial encounter is to let the players know that they have incentive to use everything at their disposal to dispatch with this enemy, because they're basically in the last final boss version room of a dungeon or whatever, and that allows them to get more familiar with their powers and capabilities before we cut scene. So once we cut scene, either might allow a little bit of opportunity for role playing with the saved woodcutter here in the cave, but could just as easily cut scene back when they're back in town and he's to safety or whatever. I don't think there's any need for travel back to town or anything. You can just kind of cut. But regardless of how you go about it, I left flexibility there for the party to kind of do whatever suits them so that it's one or the other, some role playing there if the party's feeling it. If not, then cut scene, reestablish scene, and then set the table for more of a dialogue oriented, low stakes, low energy scenario where the PCs can kind of wrap their head around what they're going to be doing.
Hmm.
So the guild leader is imploring the PCs to figure out why he was kidnapped because he doesn't know. So this scene and the following scene, depending on whether they occur in tandem or separately with a kind of cut between them, will allow the PCs to have some more low energy um, low energy scenes, but ones that have intrigue because now they have a purpose. Figure out why this happened, and presumably, if you've established your hook, okay, then the PCs would be somewhat invested in getting to the bottom of this. And what this does is it allows a segue into the next leg of the adventure, where the PCs can get some role playing and investigation. This is going to allow them to do some skill checks, likely social skill checks, but maybe some intelligence and knowledge-based skill checks that should be pretty evenly distributed among the abilities any given party is likely to have. So what this does is it provides kind of a sandbox for characters that are more socially oriented, could go question some factions or some relations that the guild has to other factions. Characters that are more perceptive or have good investigation might go poking around some different areas. They're likely to either be questioning and talking to people in town, or perhaps they might go to the site of the latest logging expedition and poke around there. Either way, it doesn't matter, because after you get a couple scenes of that, try to communicate as much information that is useful to the PCs, provided they're asking the right questions or doing things that are pushing the plot forward. And so the next leg is something that you can throw into the mix of anything when you feel that I guess those scenes are starting to kind of tap what it is that the players should know, or whether you just feel a lack of energy on the part of the party, and it's a chase. So either when the PCs are questioning people, they come across somebody that is suspicious and just, they think might know something, and then they run off. Or if they're investigating the logger site, this could just be somebody that's spying on them, and they spot the person spying on them, and a chase ensues. So now we get a skill challenge. So we kind of move back to a more high energy, fast paced scene after the party has had a chance to kind of wind down, use some of those skills, and then they'll get more familiar with their skills here. And the key would be to allow for a decent amount of creativity. Structure the skill challenge however you want. What's important is that it stays dynamic, it stays tense, and that you communicate to the players that it's important that they catch this person. But regardless if they catch him, we'll segue into the next leg. But they catch him, then they can question him, and then this is an opportunity for a more high stakes role playing encounter where the characters can be using their skills or showing off some things about their personality. Then that can be cool. However, if the spy or the interlocutor or whatever you want to call him gets away, then he will drop some sort of clue, which is not as specific as the information they would get from him, but allows them to understand that there's some complications afoot. And so that complication is, what the heck? That complication is a way to indicate that the Emerald Enclave is involved. So you could have him drop some sort of brooch or pin or something that indicates that the Emerald Enclave, this guy that they think is a culprit in some way, is involved with the Emerald Enclave. But the woodcutter is too, so there's kind of this sense of intrigue. So then throughout the course of either their investigation or by either having some auxiliary information about the thief or the bad guy absconding, then the party learns the location of some sort of hideout that presumably is being used by those behind the kidnapping. So this is our first cliffhanger. Either they learn the location from an interrogation, or they have an inclination that the Emerald Enclave, this guy that they thought was a bad guy, is also involved in some way.
Do you normally write in your cliffhangers?
Yeah, I usually have a couple in mind. Yeah.
No shit. Okay. I never knew that.
Yeah, so in this particular instance, it would be like they're interrogating him, and he tells them like, okay, yeah, there's this hideout over here, and like, it's whatever, and then it's like boom, cut scene. Or they lose the chase, and one of the characters bends down and he picks up and he looks at this little leaf brooch or whatever, and then one of the characters just says, that's an Emerald Enclave brooch, and it's like boom, intrigue or call to action, right?
Yeah.
Like next thing, that's a cliffhanger in my book.
Okay.
So then we would start the next session after that cliffhanger with a fairly low energy scene. We started fairly high octane, and we had some mystery and intrigue. So now we need to get on to the second act, or at least onto the bulk of the meat of the adventure. So, and given that we haven't done a lot exploring what the characters are like, or any intra-party role-playing, and we haven't really said much about the environment, I thought this was a good place for a travel montage. So start with a travel montage, allow the characters to do a little bit of role-playing, either through what they're doing by traveling, or by asking prodding questions about the things to allow them to fill in a little bit of backstory. Maybe you also throw in a random encounter that illustrates that the surrounding areas are dangerous to kind of communicate the stakes of the game. But either way, try not to have that drag on too long. Travel montages are precisely useful because they're like salt on a steak. Just a little goes a long way. And so then now we kind of get into the bulk of the PCs making their way to the hideout. It could be some cave complex, some abandoned mine, some outpost. Doesn't really matter. The key is that it's not too big, and that the PCs can have a fairly good idea of the magnitude of which they're going to undertake. As an intro to that, prior to that, I decided to try to incorporate a few traps, given that it's likely to be some sort of wilderness area, because the Emerald Enclave is involved, woodcutters, and this whole theme of nature or whatever. So, having kind of a gauntlet of traps that are littered outside the hideout would be appropriate and a good way to incorporate something that's a non-monster or personal enemy, something that the players can test their mettle against, and something that might soften them up a little bit because the little hideout dungeon crawl is not likely to be too rigorous, somewhere between 5 and let's call it 12 rooms.
Hmm.
So once inside, they just kind of do the paint by numbers, fight their way through a few combat encounters of bad guys, and then either through some sort of writing, interrogation, or environmental situation, the PCs will learn some information. So this is going to hopefully be as organic as it can be, handled through dialogue or investigation, because you don't want to you want to hide the brushstrokes that you're kind of giving a little bit of an info dump here, because you want to keep the pacing of the adventure tight and not have it be super drawn out mystery investigative thing, because new players are not going to be so keen on that.
Right.
So what they learn is that the unearthed arcana, if that's what we want to call it,
Hmm.
could be profitable to the Woodcutters Guild, or to anyone really, because what it does is it accelerates tree growth. So it speeds up like how fast trees like go from seedling to harvestable, basically. Um, and also throughout the course, they discover another of the members of the Woodcutters Guild as the one who had the guild leader kidnapped. I left this deliberately kind of open-ended, um, so that you could insert either through role playing or whatever, depending on whether you want to have that traitor, let's call him, there in that location, or perhaps they just learn of it and then they go back to town and they have the information in hand. You could throw some complications in there if your pacing is getting a little too accelerated. So if your PCs blast through the traps and they kill all the enemies really quickly, and you're kind of like halfway through a session, then you might want to say, well, they learn about this guy through some auxiliary means. Um, maybe there's soldiers in here, or defectors from the Wood Guild that are helping betray. But if it's just like goblins and other monsters, maybe there's some notes or some sort of clues. Depending on how good your PCs are at picking up on subtlety, you might want to go a much more subtle route and allow them to connect the dots. More experienced PCs kind of like that a little bit more than being spoon-fed stuff. But what's important is that they learn that this other member of the Woodcutters Guild is the one that had him kidnapped. Then they have a couple of options, and it would segue into our second cliffhanger. So one, they obviously could have the guy imprisoned, or they could kill him. So if they have him imprisoned, then they discover in short order that he's broken free. And if they don't have him imprisoned, then throughout the course of doing away with him, then they discover that he's working for someone else, someone at the Emerald Enclave. And then we would kind of go to cliffhanger number 2 and fill out most of the bulk of that session is just going to be kind of a dungeon crawl. So then we end cliffhanger 2, and then we kind of move into the final act of the adventure, where we would just come back from whatever we cut at last time. No need to fill in the gaps. Jump ahead a little bit in time. So the PCs are now navigating some sort of hostile wilderness to this druid's hideout. This druid is the Emerald Enclave, the bigger bad, so the goal of that cliffhanger is you raise the stakes a little bit. There's a bigger threat, and also now it's got intrigue because the Emerald Enclave, which is supposed to be the woodcutter is a member of, and presumably they wouldn't harm their own, is involved. So this has got some intrigue. We start here at the next session with a skill challenge, which is the PCs navigating into hostile wilderness. What this does is allows, again, another skill challenge. So it is going to be somewhat pithy. You could use a more cinematic approach, handling things with skill checks. But what it also does is subtextually reminds the PCs that this is a wilderness exploration, that the environment is hostile, and that whatever's on the other side of it obviously has managed to be adept enough to navigate the same threats that they are and is more at home there. So it should make the PCs feel a little bit like a fish out of water and communicate the strength of the villain subtextually. So you know, they get to the hideout, and then the PCs kind of fight their way through some monsters that are in. Again, it doesn't really matter what the hideout is. Some sort of uh, forest labyrinth, some sort of abandoned fort, some sort of makeshift uh, druidic camp. That's not really important, but there should be monsters, there should be threats. This is going to be a little more straightforward. Then, once they get to the end of that, they have the final showdown with the druid, and then we get another D&D trope where the druid will give a soliloquy, and the crux of his motivation, communicated through some sort of soliloquy, or if you want to call it like a role-playing encounter ahead of the fight, um, is that he is a member of the Emerald Enclave, or at least has been a member of the Emerald Enclave for a long time. But he believes that soft men, like the woodcutter, are kind of polluting its intended purpose. So this is a kind of uh, fairly well-worn trope, but is likely not to be something that's going to occur to the PCs, which is that it's a purity test sort of thing. There's always like some fanatic that doesn't believe that whatever organization that they're a part of is either losing sight of its values or isn't pushing things far enough along, and there's kind of an internal insurrection. Um, so he claims that the Emerald Enclave is always on about this balance between civilization and the wilds, but anytime civilization, um, basically that civilization always wins out. Um, and so what he wants to do is he wants to reverse this trend. Like every time that you're pushing into the wilderness, you claim that there's some balance, but then all you're doing is creating more urban sprawl and encroaching into the naturally occurring environments. And he wants to use the environmental phenomenon to have like the trees and the wilderness and everything that comes with it, like retake what he believes has been like unjustly annexed by the Emerald Enclave.
Hmm.
And what this does is it gives the PCs a moral choice to finish out the adventure. They can either side with the druid, going, "Hey, that's a pretty good point, man. They're always talking about balance, and it seems like all the time it's the civilization is just kind of winning out because people are involved and animals and natural environments. Like, who cares about them?" Or they could side with the guilds, or perhaps maybe they have a third option where they shut down the Unearthed Arcana permanently so nobody could use it. Those are the three broad options, but there's a lot more opportunities for maybe some more nuanced role play. But at least you give inexperienced players kind of the three options. They likely fight and defeat the druid, and then the final kind of choice would be what they're going to do with the uh, unearthed environmental phenomenon. If they decide to shut it down so no one could use it, you could even play that as another skill challenge or role playing or something where the players need to use their spell slots and stuff to shut it down for one final punch of dramatic tension, like a collapsing building that you have to escape after the sorcerer dies or whatever. Or you could just end with maybe a couple more, like a quiet role playing moment where you button up the end of the plot, cut scene, adventure over.
All right, nice. I can definitely tell that you are much more of a story writer when you're coming up with your adventure than I am. I'm more of
Yeah.
kind of like just these little points. Like I expect the players to kind of flesh out the story more than I did, but you almost
Mm.
like and you don't go, you don't put sentence to sentence to paragraph to make the story, but you have kind of a flow that you're looking for. And
Yeah.
you can you don't push them or railroad them to create the story that you've written, but you have a flow that you can manage and kind of uh, like entice them to go in the direction to make it flow the way that you have it written out. And I kind of dig that.
It's well, I kind of think about it like a story is like a river, and it empties into the ocean somewhere.
Hmm.
But a good one should have enough tributaries that allow the players, do we want to usher our raft over here to these rocky crags, or do we want to usher it over here to piranha infested waters, or do we
Yeah.
want to usher it over here toward this noxious bog? And it's like, but make no bones about it, when you get to the other side, the river reconverges, and it needs to fan out and reconverge at a good enough pace that allows there to be that contraction where the players, they're not railroaded if they can choose their path. It doesn't mean they can choose the outcome. But the adventure does end with being able to decide the final outcome,
Hmm.
as to how it will be buttoned up. And I think that ending is important. Like, you can have all the choices in the world, but if it doesn't, there's no final choice, then it in my estimation tends to rob players of a sense that they were doing anything other than just sitting on the raft all along.
Okay. All right. Well then, my turn here to show you my kind of bare bones system, and I will uh, share this for anybody that wanted to see on the VOD later, or nobody's watching us live because we're doing it on Monday where we don't usually uh, stream. But I come up with, whenever I'm coming up with an adventure, I like to come up with like a little premise or as I think I told David before, a thesis, but I don't think I was using that correctly. Uh, so I was just like, premise. Okay, good. So my adventure is titled The Devil You Know. With the premise, the city of Valoria is prosperous on the surface, streets are clean, crime is nearly non existent, and the people love their charismatic leader, Lord Halvian Duskbane. Work in progress on the name there. Yet beneath this idyllic facade, crops are failing in surrounding villages, trade routes are plagued with strange accidents, and the city's coffers are mysteriously drained. Unknown to most, Lord Halvian is actually a devil in disguise, feeding on the devotion of the citizens and using their loyalty to strengthen his infernal hold on the material plane. The heroes must uncover the truth, expose the devil's corruption, and free Valoria before the city collapses under his rule. When I come up with adventures, first of all, like this one here is a little more system agnostic, so it can be run in pretty much any other system, where when I flesh it out a little bit later, it becomes an actual D&D adventure. Usually I go by acts. That's how ICRPG made a lot of their one-page adventures, and I kind of dug that, doing it in acts. Uh, and also, I'm a theater kid from back in the day, so it kind of goes with my, it's like, it's my fucking jam, dude. So as we go on, first of all, I put down the hooks that I think I can bring the characters into. So if this was a new adventure, I'd have a couple hooks to get them in. If it's a brand new adventure, I can just start them off and give them this hook of why they were brought in. So I have a couple different versions, and usually I'll have more than just two, but this one I only have two. Like, the adventurers are hired by desperate farmers whose villages are failing while Valoria thrives, and then a temple sends them to investigate rumors of infernal influence in the city. Just some simple hooks to get them going in, and I'll usually role play something out on the spot. I'm more of a like an on the spot creative sort, instead of writing a lot of it down, where later on you'll see I do write it in here, and how flagrant I get with some of the text. When we get into the city, oh, and what I wanted to say was each act that I have should take at least one session. I usually like it to take more like two per act. But this one here, I was making as a one shot. So now it's more like each act should be about an hour or two. So arrival into the city, I have a couple bullet points that I have in there, letting them know about the city. Like, the city is stunningly clean with loyal citizens who cheer their leader. Lord Halvian himself will greet newcomers warmly, offering them work and hospitality. And then I start putting in stuff for the players to work with, like challenges and of course complications when it comes with the challenges. Like I have it here, I just have in bold text: challenge. Anyone speaking ill of Halvian draws hostility. Citizens defend him with their blind fervor, even against obvious evidence of corruption. And then I add in the complication, where later, after they like interact with the people, attempts to gather dirt on the Lord are thwarted by bureaucracy, accidental misdirection, and over enthusiastic guards who sincerely believe they're protecting the city's greatest benefactor. This here is kind of just like the inn, where I have like the temple sends them to investigate rumors of infernal influence. They already have kind of the idea of what's probably happening around here. Of course, if a temple's just like the devil's in this city, they might already see it when, and I don't want it to be too obvious. where everybody's just like, this guy's fucking great, and as soon as you say something bad about him, I'm going to turn super evil. But I want to give them, I need something to hook them in there to start realizing that the devil is the leader himself in disguise. So I like that as just a little hook. Going into Act 2, as you can see, I kind of leave it very bare bones. I'm more, like I've told you before, just bullet points, and then I will just improv on top of it as we go, letting the players kind of create the story around it. Act 2 comes around, where more things are happening, strange happenings, and then, which I just have a couple bullet points of the strange happenings as the players go around the city. And now I have a list of my investigation options, where the players, if they want to do an intelligence check to figure out where to go, or if they start asking some people, the records hall, I have what they will be able to find in there, the old temple, and then the underground resistance with some text that goes and describes what they will find in those places. Again, with another complication. Many a times the complications I'll put in here, because this one is system agnostic, I didn't put it in there, but complications can also be a combat encounter. But here, a few of them, as we're getting into the adventure. Now, of course, Lord Halvian invites the adventurers to dinner. He is charming, generous, and flawlessly courteous. A high-stakes social encounter allows players to test insight, arcana, or persuasion to glimpse his infernal mask slipping. So this is now around the time, because this is getting into, I believe there's 5 acts in here. Getting to the midpoint, now it's time to start bringing them in and showing them what the actual plot of the adventure is. Going into the revelations and resistance, coming in, finding the devil's true plans. Again, just 2 or 3 bullet points that I put in there. Find out that he is in fact a contract devil, or later on when I do, there's a skill challenge that I have later. For them to decrease his power, which he will be a contract devil for the encounter. But if they fail the skill challenge, then I use a pit fiend instead, because he's still at full power when they attack him. For things later on, when I have the D&D one here, I actually say recommended levels 5 to 7, just so you know.
Not for a pit fiend, it ain't.
Yeah, I know. So true plans come out. The city's prosperity is fueled by draining the life and resources from surrounding lands, which will eventually collapse into ruin. Once enough souls are bound by loyalty, he will drag Valoria into the 9 hells as his personal domain. This is all the information that the players finally get. Knowing what they have to do, I kind of put down choices that if they, again, because it's a one-shot, if they are new players, I have these choices out there to give them if they, draw a blank, if they fall flat. Ways to do this: expose him publicly, assassinate him in secret, break the contracts, things like that. Just giving them something to do. And I always have a little blurb out there to kind of tell them, what this will do. Act 5, the final confrontation. And then I have a few possible climaxes for the actual adventure itself. Public trial. The heroes confront Halvian in front of the citizens. His infernal form is revealed when the contracts are destroyed, but the citizens still hesitate. Do they believe their own eyes or not? Perhaps another social encounter where they have to try to coerce or show more, tuck the citizens in, tell them that they've all been lied to and that they're blind and there's a spell on them. Of the ritual, adventurers defend the temple from Halvian's minions while completing the ritual to sever his hold. That's what I was talking about, where he might decrease in power. The throne room duel, the classic boss fight in the lavish seat of power, where Halvian drops all pretenses and summons hellfire to destroy the party. A little bit of aftermath. I always have a few bullet points of aftermath stuff for if they succeed or if they fail, because it'll usually give me, later on, you'll see here, that I put a little flavor text at the very end. But it just lets them know what happens if it is just a one-shot and we're not going to continue on from in this game at all. It's always kind of nice to do a little epilogue at the end to let them know what they sacrificed for and that, things got better. Or if they failed, boo-hoo, motherfucker, you fucked up. Shit sucks now. Then I got a little into it a little bit more. So I put one-shot adventure, The Devil You Know, recommended levels 5 to 7. And it's the same thing. Instead, I put scenes instead of acts. But same titles, Arrival in Valoria, where it's more of a role play and exploration with some nice flavor text now. And we all know it's flavor text because I said beforehand, read aloud flavor, and it's italicized. Always italicize your flavor text. So I got a little, a little poetic with some flavor text, as well as now I have encounters and challenges as we're going along. The very first one that we have here, I have a persuasion or insight challenge, the DC, and then what they will notice or what they will gain from success on the checks. I also have a social challenge here. Like if the party mentions suspicions about the Lord, townsfolk turn defensive, guards politely but firmly warn them against speaking ill of Valoria's favor. The goal of these challenges will be to establish that something is too perfect about Valoria, giving them the idea that from everything that they've heard, this place is supposed to, everything around here is absolutely horrible, but this city is just a little too good. On to Act 2 or Scene 2. Again, I have a role play with optional combat, depending on how long I want the encounter to go. So here I have the hook encounter. At night, the party is contacted by a ragged figure, Morella, a priest of the old temple. She warns Halvian is no man. He feeds on us and our devotion. If you want the truth, come to the temple ruins. When they go there, I have for the combat, a couple veteran are using veteran stat blocks, reskinned as fanatical city guards. Anywhere from 4 to 6 of them, depends on the size of your party, of course, and level. But I always put in a caveat that if they want to try to talk their way out or role play out of it, I can, I'll put something in there. Or if I don't think that it will happen, because I don't think this is a bad thing. If you really want to, you can say violence is going to happen no matter what. There's no talking them out of it. No matter what you roll, it's going to happen. It continues the same way. I have skill challenges that I put in here with the skills that I think are more relevant. If the players come up with a good reason to use other skills, I'm in. But these are the ones that I think are going to be the best to use and going to be the ones that are more useful. So again, if the players are new, you can just tell them which ones that to use. If they are veterans, say, skill challenge, what do you do? What skill do you use? And make it good. If they want to use athletics for some reason, and it is, just looking through tomes, just like, okay, how do you use your athletics to read through books? As we keep going, this is all I do, is I just start putting in more skill challenges, 5 successes before 3 failures, using which skills, have more combat encounters, as well as outcomes from all of them. It's all the same stuff, really, just more fleshed out from my usual bullet point system. Again, I have my epilogue, if Haviland is defeated, and if Haviland wins, so on and so forth. And then I went back for the 3rd time to add on even more, which is mostly all just flavor. I did put in a couple more skills as well as complications. I do have some puzzles that I have in here that go with skill challenges, and I will always have the complication if they fail. Like I think I had it with the records hall here. I believe it is. Yes. So the skill challenge, the challenge itself is finding hidden infernal contracts in the city archives. So skill challenge, use Arcana, Investigation, Religion, or Thieves tools. You need 3 successes before 2 failures, which will reveal the contracts hidden with magical glyphs. If you fail the skill challenge, the trigger will be a glyph of warding. Fire trap goes off, destroying the evidence, and as well as probably damaging some of the party. So that's about it. I'm The only reason I went a little overboard, usually I don't do anything past this with the bullet points. Uh, but I did. As I wrote this down, I don't usually write a lot of this down. Uh, like I said, I'm usually very little when it comes to this. Like, no, this is about right for my bullet point writing. Uh, but my premise here, I put a little bit more into it. It's usually more of just like two sentences instead of a paragraph and a third that I have on here. Uh, but this is about my, usually takes me about an hour or two to kind of put it down. And like I said, I usually like the players to form the story around it, where I just have like blocks of it put out.
See, you're familiar with the phrase "people in glass houses should not throw stones," Matt? See, you shouldn't have fucked with me, bro. You shouldn't have fucked with me at the beginning for taking longer. I could have written an adventure a lot quicker too if I had really went deep on trying to have ChatGPT help me. Like, I know a fucking ChatGPT adventure when I hear one, and this is a ChatGPT. I mean, I'm sure you had the ideas, but
Mm.
like the breakdown and the structure, like I could have, if I was willing to use ChatGPT,
Yeah.
I could have done this shit a week sooner too.
Oh,
So
sure.
don't act like you did so much more than me in the same amount of
No,
time because you
like I
had
said,
help.
I did it about an hour.
You had more help than I did.
Yeah. No, I don't give a shit. No. Yeah, I come up with the ideas, the little points here, and then I'll just put in, hey, can you make a test for me?
Yeah. Well,
With this,
what
this
you
is the.
if I know anything about the way your brain works for adventures, what I think you mostly need help with is structuring them.
Mhm.
Because this is something that like in particular when I first started writing adventures, I had a huge problem with pacing because I had a huge problem with structure because I didn't know anything about writing. You know, I didn't take up writing until I really seriously until I was in college. And man, it's so helpful to like learn how to structure things a little bit better.
Mhm.
And so it's like in I don't know if you benefit more from having more of a. The reason I can tell is because ChatGPT will always give you ideas in more of like a sandbox formula.
Mhm.
They won't. They won't get unless you ask it like make it really specific and give me very very specific tasks that I'm going to be doing. But the reason that it's useful is because you can collate the same information. You can go, okay, I have like a idea, and how do I have that play out in a structured way that makes sure that I don't run over time. Uh, However, I would be curious to know if you've ever ran, because here's what I don't know. I don't know that ChatGPT knows exactly how long a one-shot adventure takes.
Mhm.
And if you say, give me something that is like going to take a one shot, I could very easily see it writing something like, dude, this is going to take 12 hours to get through because it doesn't play D&D.
Right.
And so I would be really curious to see if that structure, if you actually ran an adventure that it structured for you with your ideas,
Mhm.
I'd be very curious to hear whether it was like, yeah, it was actually right on the money, like 1 6 hour session. It knows exactly how to pace something better than I do.
Mhm.
Or if you would, if you were to run it and go like, dude, what do you're cramming too much information in one like one shot adventure. I'd be really curious to see how that would play out because I've never used it for something like in a game to help. I guess I'm less confident that it can structure something for pacing than I can structure it for pacing. But it would be great for that purpose if
Oh,
that's
yeah,
something you
yeah.
struggle with.
Well, that's why I love the bullet point like system there,
Hmm.
because you can. I know from using it before when like because I got it all from when I started running ICRPG.
Hmm.
Every adventure that they have that I've ever seen, they've only done in bullet point.
Yeah.
And I know that as long as I have just like only no more than 3 points, really, that it shouldn't take that long. And each act, and this is the same way they had it in ICRPG, each act or each scene, however you want to put it, uh, should take anywhere from a couple hours to a session,
Sure.
depending on, because if your session is 8 hours, then you're probably going to get 2 acts done. Because I always have my acts as about 4 hours. Because
Okay.
usually acts are going to be one session, and all of my sessions are 4 hours. Uh, so for this one, the one shot, you can. It's easier to go through, and you have all your blocks there that you can take just a few of them and say, I want to shorten this so that each block or each act can only be 2 hours, or hell, even an hour, really, if you really want.
See, but that's the thing that I would wonder whether it plays out well because to me, if I take it when I write an adventure, I usually write it and then I have an idea of how long it's going to take. And if I tried to like crunch it all down into one session when it's supposed to be three, it seems like it would just fuck with the pacing so much that I wouldn't know how to run it. But then again, there's also the possibility that you'd be protracting something. Um, so I guess I just I don't really know how it often plays out because you could say, yeah, it's the same content, but to me, it's like, why would you, if you were writing a book and you could write a book in 200 pages, why would you take 400 pages to write it? And if the book needs 400 pages, then trying to squeeze it into 200 pages is going to seem
Mm-hmm.
hurried. And so, like, but I have no idea. Maybe the more crunched things are, maybe the more specific they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because what takes time is often giving the players lots of latitude, lots of autonomy. But if it's just you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do that, then you can have much higher confidence in the timeline, so to speak, because you just know it's like 5 scenes and this is what happens in each scene, and maybe there's some of this. But the more open you make it, the more time it's going to eat up. And but that's not always better. It would just vary at least in my estimation, it varies based on like what you want to accomplish in the adventure. An espionage, murder mystery, intrigue, role playing heavy, with lots of factions and like politicking. It needs more runway than just a kind of maybe action oriented dungeon crawl or a wilderness crawl that's action heavy. Um, and that would depend on what sort of thing that I wanted. I tried to straddle those two worlds with my concept because I at least I find more experienced players are fine for a slower burn if because there's often bigger payoffs, right? Like you're getting more into the details of their character relationships and you're getting more into like maybe off the beaten path mystery that they really have to dig to find, whereas newbie players don't really want to have to dig. They don't have the chops for that yet. Um, so I like the push pull of like including some of it at certain intervals, but then kind of pulling back, and it helps me control my pacing. But again, I've never tried to compress something that is like a longer adventure into a shorter one, so I have no idea how that would go.
It goes all right.
Yeah.
Depends on uh how much you go over it. Like
Hmm.
I would have to read something a lot. Like I've told you before, I can run Death House in 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
Because I've done it so many fucking times. I know what I can cut out. I
Yeah.
know how to push them farther, to get them moving farther if I need.
Yeah.
I know which encounters I can get rid of because I've run that thing so many fucking times.
But that's a good example. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because to me, I don't think I could run it in 2 hours because to me, the whole essence of Death House is the kind of slow building of the mood and the atmosphere.
Hmm.
And there's really, you have to have that be like a slow drip on the first level. I mean, maybe if you get really good at it, you know which creepy beats hit hard and then you just kind of hit them and move on. But something that's required to like build tension and dread, I would be really curious to run or to play in a 2 hour version of Death House to see if it still feels like the same
Hmm.
as I mean, I've only run it a couple of times, so I don't really. And one of the times I felt like it dragged a little bit. Now that you mention it, but the first time I thought was I think you were when I lived in Ann Arbor, we ran it, and I thought it was
Hmm.
pitch perfect. I was like, man, like the drama and it was pitch perfect. But then the second time I ran it, it felt kind of clunky, and because I think the players were a little more confused as to what they were supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
because they were all new players too.
Mm.
So it was like they're just like, what? Nothing's happening here. Like, what am I? No, no, it's creepy. It's creepy. It's
Yeah.
like, no, okay, because they wanted to get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, that's one thing I already take out. I don't do any combat encounters except for in the basement when you go against the shambling mound, as well as I'll have a few specters in there just
yeah,
to add a little bit of flavor on the end. But if I want it to only be 2 hours, like when I used to do the charity uh, games,
hmm,
because you only have 2.5 hours to get them, I would take out all combat encounters and just make it. Except I would have the nurse still be there. Like they would see her, and it would be more of like a role play encounter, just so that it wasn't going to be anywhere
'Cause-
close to an hour for combat.
Okay, yeah, because the nurse is like a banshee or something,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And then there's an animated armor. The first floor has no combat encounters anyway.
Nope.
And then basically you just have like the role playing encounter and the weird puzzle thing with the house.
Yep.
And a little bit more mood up top with no animated armor. It might be in like an animated rug or something, or
It's
specter or something
the
in there, too.
animated. What is it? Is it a sword or is it a broom? It's a broom.
The broom, yeah, yeah. That's a throwaway encounter for sure. You can get rid of that. But yeah. So it does seem like those are just kind of thrown in there to spice it up. That's a good call. That's probably, if I were to shorten it, that's the first thing I would do too, is get rid of the animated armor. Maybe just have the armor like maybe have it like jangle or something to like make you think it's going to come alive, and then it
Yeah.
collapses, and then do a role playing encounter with the spirit of the nurse. It would really compress things down, give them a little
Yeah.
bit of bandwidth to solve
The baby
problem.
crying and the nurse is just too good, too creepy to take out. So
yeah,
it's
really
got to
good.
stay.
And then you could probably even trim out one of the more minor, because there's a couple combat encounters in the basement. But yeah, the shambling mound is tough, so the players want to build toward it. But yeah, I could see maybe I could trim it down if I ran it again. But yeah, so.
Yeah, it's just something nice that if you only have a couple hours, just build the mood going through the house all the way up to the top. Find the secret passage that takes you down to the basement. You can go through where like the shades are and all that other shit, but you can take all that out too and just go right to the shambling mound room where all of the ghosts show up, chanting around, and then you have to deal with the shambling mound. And then, of course, there's the escape. As the house begins to kind of crumble on itself. God, that's a great one-shot adventure.
It really is.
All right. Well, then, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. For all of you out there, what do you guys do for your adventures? How do you write them out? Let us know. Send it to the emails, the insidethegmstudio@gmail.com. Let us know how you do it. Or, if you want, come on over, watch us live. Twitch.tv/InsideTheGMStudio. Same thing over there on YouTube, youtube.com/InsideTheGMStudio. Usually every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. But don't hold us to it. We don't always do it on Sundays. Don't worry about it. Let us know. What do you want to hear? What do you want us to talk about? We'd love for you to tell us some topics to talk about, because we need content, and I'm coming up with some fun shit, but we want to know what you want to hear. So, for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I've been your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And that's a good night.